Hey, this is Professor Homa. Welcome to EX7 Info Form Part 1, and we're going to get started from scratch. And what I'm looking at here is actually a finished product, and it's a JPEG that I downloaded from Blackboard. I made a screenshot, and you're going to download it too. That way you'll have a screenshot to look at, but you won't have the actual file to look at, so it won't work the same way a file will work. You can see it's getting smaller as I scale it here. But you get to see a finished product of it, and that's the purpose of the JPEG. Also, what you should do is make sure you go to W3 Schools, go to the HTML section, scroll down to HTML forms, and make sure you familiarize yourself with the different form elements, the input fields, the text inputs, the radio buttons, some of these things that we'll be using. We'll be using some of these more, we'll be using them in different ways as we go, but this will be our first little start with forms. And we're going to start this from scratch. So what you're going to do is wherever you have your folder stored, I'm going to go here where I have all my student files, and I have kind of examples of yours, but here's mine, and here's the last one I did, EX6. I'm just going to make a new folder here, and I'm going to call it EX7. I'm not going to give you a folder because you could start it from scratch. I'll just call it EX7, and that's all I have to do right now. And then I'm going to go to brackets, and if you have an other EX6 folder here, you're going to go here to wherever the folder is, the getting started, or if it's the EX6 folder, and you're basically going to open folder and go find that folder you just made. So I'm going to go here and go find my student sample folder, and I'm going to choose EX7, and there shouldn't be anything in there. So there's nothing there. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a file new, and I'm going to save it right away because it won't color code anything right away. So I'm going to just do a file save as. And I'll just call it index.html so it knows it's an HTML file. And I'll make sure it's in my EX7 folder. And that's it. And there's nothing there. And I'm eventually going to make a CSS file, but I'll get started with my HTML file. And I'll do some of my basics here, just to refresh yourself with the doc type. And you may forget how this works. You may have to go look up some other ones. HTML. That's our opening declaration. And we're going to do HTML. Lang equals N for English, and that's our opening HTML. And you can see we have our closing. We could put that down a little bit, and then what comes next after HTML, and it'll put a closing one there, and some things we want in our head tag. We want a title in there, so we're going to put in title, and we could just put EX7 info form. And you can put your name on there. I'll just put sample, and that's fine. And then also we're going to put our link to our CSS file. Now we don't have it yet, but you're going to call it ex7.css. So you could put that in right now. And remember, to do that, you start off with link rel, and if you choose rel in quotes, it kind of helps you out a little bit. So we're going to look rel equals style sheet. We'll put that in first, and then we'll do type equals, and it looks for text.css, and then we're going to put our ref, because remember you got to link to it. So I'll select that, and I don't have it yet, so it's not coming up as a suggestion here, so I'll just do ex7.css, and then I'll close off my tag up here. So that's my link to my file, which I don't have yet, so that's where we're going to format our CSS, and we're not going to worry about that yet until we have a lot of HTML to do before we actually do that. So that's what we're going to start off in our head tag, and then remember, after our head tag is going to be our body tag. So we're going to do our body, and there's our closing body tag. So we're going to have a bunch of stuff in here, and the first thing we're going to put in here before we do our form is we're going to just put a h1 tag, and this is just the h1 that says please complete the form with just a colon, and that's all that's going to be in our h1 tag. And then after that, we're going to start a form. So we're just going to start a form here, and when we do that, it'll put a finished form tag, which is okay. And we can put a name in here. We could put name equals, and we'll just do info form for now. We don't really need the name that much, and you can put an ID here as well. And we can get in the habit of doing that. If you want to do an ID equals info form, that's fine, and they could be the same. And we'll just start off with our form. So that's our form. Now there's nothing physical to really look at yet. We have to start putting things inside our form. And remember, we can format with CSS the form and then the different parts. So if you remember, we'll go back to here again, just to look, the first part of our form is the first name. We have a couple input fields. We actually have 4 of them. We have first name, last name, street, city. So we'll go through starting that, and then once we do one, it should be fairly easy. We don't have to, we could just copy and paste some things after that. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a label, and then we'll actually do the form. So we're going to go back to brackets, and after starting my form, the first thing I'm going to do is do a label for. The label attribute can help label parts of the form, so I'll do label for, and then in quotes I'm just going to put, for the first field that's there is going to be last name. So I'll just use last name because we're going to use that as our name and as our ID name, so I'll start with that. And I didn't put equals here. It seems weird to put equals after 4, but you do need the equals there. So I'm going to put that there, and then I'll close it off. And then in between the closing label, we have to put what we're going to put, and I'm just going to put first name. So that's going to be my first field, or the label for it. Then we're actually going to have to put our label. Then we're actually going to have to put our input field. So what we do next is we're going to do input. If you remember, type equals text. That's a text field, so we're going to do that next. And then we're also going to do some of those other attributes like name equals first name. And then we can also put an ID in there. Even though we're not going to use it yet, we could get in the habit of doing that. And you know, sometimes they'll recommend putting kind of the closing slash in here to self-close it. You could do that. It's not required, but it's probably a good thing to do. They recommend that. So that's going to be the first part there. It's just an input text field. So I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to open up, I'm going to preview it and see what I have so far. See if I have anything to look at yet. And there it is. First name. That's all that's what I have so far. Remember, it's 20 characters to start, and we can make it a little longer, but I'll just start with that. And we just made our first part of our form. And obviously I could copy this. And I mentioned the trick we're going to do. We're going to put line breaks in between these. So that's going to be the way we do this. So then I'm going to do the next couple, and it's really going to, you know, repeat this. So you don't have to watch me really type this, but the next one I'm going to do is going to be last name. I don't know why I put, this should really be first name. Not sure why I did that. That should be first name. This should be last name. This should be last name. I think I messed that up when I started. Okay, so again, the label first name should match, and I'll put last name here. Obviously they should match. You probably caught that as I was typing it, saying what is he doing. But now we have a label for first name, a label for last name, and these should all say last name here, and it's the same kind of field. So if I just save it and take a look at it, just refresh, this is what we have so far. And you can see there, with a line break, they go right after each other. So it's not going to look nice for a while. So it's going to take a little time. And this is what I'm talking about. We're going to make the length of this bigger so that there's more distance between those fields. So it's not going to look good right away. And then what's going to come next, I'll do a couple of these so you don't have to watch. We're going to do street and city, and we're going to adjust these. And I think I gave it like a 38 length. We went from like 20. I didn't double it, but I might go to like 38 something for the street and city. So I'm going to do that next, and then we'll move on to this part. Okay, I just finished putting a couple more in here. I even put the zip code in here since that is a input text field. So I could just copy and paste that as I was copying and pasting other ones. So this is what I have so far, and it looks pretty ugly right now. And now remember, we're going to make the street and the city, and you can see already I'm seeing first name, last name, street, first name, last. So obviously I forgot some things here. So make sure that you change your, you know, there's a bunch of things that you have to change here if you're copying and pasting. So this one should say city. So I make sure that that label changes. Even though it said label for city, I have to actually, the actual text that it uses is the one that's here in black. So that's going to be city. And then also what I can do to make these longer is I could put a size equal. And I'll put that right in the beginning here. I'll just put size equals. And I think I put this in quotes, and I'll put double quotes here. And I'll put 38 and see how that looks to start. And I'll put a space between my other. And I'll just save it and take a look at it, make sure that looks okay. And you can see city's longer there, and that should be fine to start for no matter what city you're in. Also for street, I'll do the same thing in case you have a long address, and I'll just copy and paste this size. I'll put that right in here somewhere. If you have too many spaces, I'll kind of even it out. So that should be good. I should have all my text fields in here. So that's the first part. We're doing label 4, and then that's this part here that we're starting out with, and then we're doing the input type, which is actually the one on the right. So for all these things that we're working on, this is the input text field, and it defaults at about 20 characters, and this is the one that we put at 38 characters, and we have everything here. So we're off to a good start, and I think I labeled them okay, except we don't have the state in here, and that's what we're going to do next.